All right, so thank you for having me today. I'm going to talk about Node.js PaaS, so basically Node.js as a service. For myself, I'm not a JS or Node.js expert. I'm a Java developer and just do it just for fun. So feel free to ask at any time, but please don't be disappointed if I don't know the answer instantly. The reason I created this talk was because I was hosting an application myself at Heroku, and they changed their plan, and I had to look for a new provider. And then I started to look across the market and created this presentation for this overview. Right. So what are we going to do? Just some short introduction at the beginning. I will skip the Node.js part and stick to the PaaS part. Then show you the motivation for my review of the market. So that means what's the use case that I had in mind when I was searching for my best fit. Then show you around what's available. And I'll finish with a short demo just showing you how easy it is to deploy your application to your provider of choice. Right, so we skip that. Just go to PaaS. What does platform as a service mean? As you saw in the talk before, you can just install Node.js on your machine, on your laptop, or host it on your server. But then you have to take care of security updates. You have to keep the server running. And if you use platform as a service, you're just working on an abstraction of the real machine. You're just seeing the runtime environment, just the Node.js version of your choice. You don't have to bother with security updates, networking. You can easily scale your application. And in cloud terms, that means platform as a service is running on top on infrastructure as a service. What would be Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, for example, and is operating one level below software as a service, which would then be an application like Salesforce. So this reduces the overhead for you. It's ready to use. You can easily get started with a small project like I did. And you don't have any fixed costs at the beginning. You pay as you go, as you do with every cloud offering. But you have to keep in mind that nothing is for free. So it's a very comfortable environment, and you have to pay for that. But most of the providers offer free plans for the beginning, what was also very important for me. And if you do have an application which is more complex and needs additional components like a database or messaging systems, analytics, and everything, the PaaS providers give you an easy life by offering a number of plugins. Just to give a few categories here: analytics, data store, DevOps, everything you might want to have. And most of them are third-party, actually, so they only offer the marketplace where the provider of the add-on then can host its add-on and offer it to you for a price or free plan for the beginning. And to encourage you to use it, most plans are free, and often you get some kind of discount to the normal price when you book it at the provider directly. Higher loads, of course, are like PaaS itself, can get expensive easily. So you should have that in mind when hosting a production application on PaaS. So what was my use case for the search? Just a small web application. I used to search around Xing and to look at profiles without letting the one whose profile it is letting it know. That's easily possible through Xing's public API. And I hosted that initially on Google's App Engine, but then ported it to Node.js because I found it very hard to deploy it on the App Engine. You had to compile it, had to use a Maven plugin supplied by Google where you had to log in on the web page to use it, and that's very easy in contrast with Node.js, where you can just have your application, your JavaScript files. You can build it via Grunt, and they have a build control plugin, for example, or you can just use plain Git, where I also host my application, and can just deploy it by pushing to a remote Git repository. So the application itself is just another Git repository which you can add as a separate remote, and can then easily continuously integrate and especially continuously deploy what I do with CodeShip. So we'll see that at the end when I give you a little demo. So let's have a look at the large zoo of providers available. I looked at about 30, and I gathered those by Googling around and using a website called paasify.it, which I can recommend highly because it's a product of the research of the University of Bamberg, where they checked out, I think, about over 80 PaaS providers, and you can just go to that page, enter your requirements, and then you get a list of eligible providers. So that's easy to look at the high level, but then you have to go to the details, have to look at the pricing model, for example. That's what we're going to do on the next slides. To avoid having to discuss 30 providers with you right now, which would take more than half an hour that I have, I'll just set up some criteria for exclusion and discuss them in the first place. And the first one would be I need a platform which is documented in German or English, because I don't speak any other languages, and that kicks some out of the competition. And of course, it would be great if you start with a new platform, that the platform offers you some free plan for the beginning, that you don't have to enter your credit card when registering and incur high costs because your account is hacked or something.
So excuse me,
yeah.
What language are these platforms documented
in what language, German or English? The remaining ones?
The other ones.
The other ones. Chinese, for example, I think is for Nodejs. This one here, I don't remember the name, but that's documented in Dutch. Right, that's also Chinese up there. Yeah, so there are quite a few. Right. So not every platform offers a free plan, especially the ones who target a more enterprise audience, like HP Hellion or CloudN by, I think, Entity Docomo. And what would be most nice if you're just hosting a side project of yours like I do, if you could host it for free permanently. So if the ones using the platform for production apps would pay for you using it for non-production apps. And there are also quite a few remaining here. That's great. But you have to look at the conditions of their offerings in detail, because Microsoft Azure, for example, requires you to pay for the traffic. I don't want that. What's next? I think Nitrous.io offers you to run an app for free permanently, but it may only run for 2 hours a day. Okay, that's not so much. Yeah. You think about what's next. I think cloudControl and .cloud. .cloud was offered by Docker, but it was sold to cloudControl, so it's basically the same offering. And PaaS, also a Chinese offering. You may see the signs down here. But it's documented in English, so it would be fine. But all plugins offered are only documented in Chinese. And I wanted to have some kind of analytics solutions like New Relic or something that was not available, and didn't want to go for a Chinese one, so I also kicked that one out of the competition. Remaining are 5 providers, and I will go into more detail with these 5. Let's start with cloudControl. It's a German service hosted by a German company in Berlin. It's run on proprietary technology, so nothing which would be open source available. It's available since 2010. They started supporting Node.js in 2014 and offer Node.js 0.12, which is not the most recent version, but you have the offer to integrate any version you would like to have by building your own Heroku build pack, which is basically the architecture of another provider, Heroku, which we'll see on one of the next slides. But they integrated this API, and there are many build packs already available on GitHub just for free use. They offer over 30 plugins in the marketplace, which is quite nice. Databases, or things you might need for a basic application, basically. And what I thought first when offering cloudControl to you, I thought, okay, it's a German company, so it's good for everyone who likes privacy and wants to make sure that his data stays in Germany or the European Union. Yes, it stays in the European Union, but at Amazon Web Services, so you're not safe, sorry. But what's quite nice is that they offer one app for free with 128 megabytes of RAM. And that doesn't mean the application gets terminated if you exceed that amount, but the app will get slow because it has to swap to disk. The next German offering would be CloudNode, which is based on an open source platform called Nodejs, which you could also deploy on your own servers. So to have your private cloud, your private PaaS. Although I don't recommend that because Nodejs is no longer developed since about 2 or 3 years because the company called Nodejs died. And maybe that's the reason why CloudNode is still a beta, even though it's available since 2011. So I don't know if they really continue to develop on it. At least they're offering it as a private beta at the moment. You also get to see that when looking at the versions offered, those are quite old. Right, there is no plugin marketplace at CloudNode, so you have to stick to the few CouchDB and Redis offerings they are giving to you. You have no other extension possibilities, although you can use any cloud service you like and connect to it, but it's outside of the platform itself. It also runs at Amazon Web Services, and what's cool about CloudNode is that they are the only provider offering one instance for free permanently without any memory limit. At least they do not communicate a memory limit. There will be one. I don't know how high it is, but they just say, okay, don't do more than 150,000 requests per month. So that might be interesting if you have a highly frequented site and not so highly frequented site, sorry, but which needs a lot of RAM, for example, if you're using the Socket.io library to upload 15 megabyte large images. The most known player is certainly Heroku. They have been on the market since 2007, and in 2010 were acquired then by Salesforce.com. There was also the time they integrated Node.js into their stack, and they support all available versions basically, so up to version 5, which is the newest one, you know. And what's also nice that they have the most comprehensive marketplace available with over 150 plugins. So anything you might need for your app, it's very likely to find it at Heroku's Elements marketplace. You can also choose where to run it, EU West or US East regions of Amazon Web Services. And what I found very cool about Heroku in the first place when I hosted my app there was that they offer unlimited amount of apps with 512 megabytes of RAM each. And I think too many people realized that this was a very cool offer. So half a year ago, they sent some like newsletter email with a short part saying that, okay, effective 1st of July, your app has to sleep 6 hours a day. And that is a problem because before they also had the setting that if your application doesn't get any requests in 15 minutes, they'll put it to sleep. And okay, and then you just set up some cloud service which pings the application every 5 minutes and then keeps it running. But then at 6 p.m. every day your application is offline until midnight. And I thought that that's not cool. If I come home from work, want to use my application, it's down. So I had to look for something different. The next one would be Bluemix by IBM, which they put to the market 1 year ago. So IBM was a long time known for just manufacturing enterprise computers, mainframes, and selling expensive software. But they made the shift in the last 10 years towards software and services, and then launched their platform, which is based on Pivotal's Cloud Foundry, which I think is a joint venture of EMC and VMware, which is also open source, so you could also install that on your private servers. But they made some closed source extensions to it. Bluemix was then especially celebrated by the press for their offering to integrate IBM Watson, this cognitive learning system, as a service into a platform as a service offering. So that's certainly something that's very unique for Bluemix. If you need that feature, okay, go to Bluemix. What's also cool is that they offer all available Node.js versions, and you have over 80 plugins by IBM, like Watson or DB2, and also by third parties in their catalog available. And they are the only ones I've now described in detail that don't host at Amazon Web Services, but they do it at SoftLayer, which is IBM's own infrastructure as a service company. You can host there 1 to 4 apps permanently free of charge, but you're limited to 512 megabytes of RAM in total. So you can split it to 4 apps with 128 or 1 app with 512 megabytes, for example. So the last one I decided was the best fit for my requirement is OpenShift, which is offered by Red Hat. And it's also an open source software you can install on your own servers or also in your company. And they also do offer a version called OpenShift Online, which is then hosted by Red Hat or especially hosted at Amazon Web Services, like all providers do. And it's available since 2011, so I think it's pretty mature. And offers Node.js 0.10 and 0.6, which are old versions, but like with Heroku, you have the possibility to create yourself so-called cartridges. and include newer versions of Node.js. And that's also the case here. So just take a few minutes, look at GitHub, and you have your 5.x cartridge ready. The marketplace is quite slow indeed, quite small, sorry, and includes only about 30 plugins, but included New Relic, which I wanted to use for analytics, that was available. So that was okay for me, and also the hosting in the European Union and the US on AWS was okay for me. And I like their free offer very much because they offer 3 apps with 512 megabytes of RAM each. And these do not have to sleep. They do not fall asleep. So they're basically available 24/7 with restrictions. I have a monitoring on it, and every 1 to 1.5 months, the instance is down for 5 minutes. But I think that's pretty fair for an offering that doesn't cost a thing. And I wanted to deploy my app in various stages continuously, so that was cool that I get 3 apps, which I use for deploying the same app to different stages. Right. What's common for all these offerings is that it's very easy to deploy to them, and that's what I'm just going to show in a short demo next. The use case is pretty simple, just a small Express app where you have to configure the port and the IP. There you cannot hard-code a value because you do not know the value until your app is started. And then I'll just return the string hello TNG. I'm running at the DNS name of the application. If someone opens the root path of the application, start it and put something to the log. And I, of course, have a package.json file, which is very basic. Just run the index.js file. Right. So to begin, you have to install a Ruby gem called RHC that's used to manage these apps. That's quite a short thing to do. It takes a few seconds. Right, okay, that's it. After installing, you of course have to configure RHC with the parameters you get when registering at the OpenShift website. So your username, your password. Run RHC setup, enter it, and then RHC will already generate a new SSH key pair for you, which you can use to deploy to the Git repository, so push to the repository, basically. And you can also use it to SSH to your instance, so there's a virtual machine behind it, and if you need to do low-level debugging, you can also do that. After configuring RHC, we're now ready to create our first app, which I just called Node Demo, and I use the Node.js 010 cartridge as infrastructure. That's pretty fast, actually, and can now see, okay, we already have an URL for our application, we have the SSH address, and we have our Git remote. And if you would just now go to that page, there would be already some demo page by Red Hat, but I want to deploy my own application because that even contains less than the demo by Red Hat. So I just clone my GitHub repository right here. And after doing that, I can add the OpenShift remote. And then I can just git push by using the force switch because I'm overwriting the remote repository as I didn't clone it. And you have to wait for some time right here because you get a lot of output. If you're just pushing to GitHub, it normally says just success. And here you get all the debug information, how the application is built together on OpenShift. The most important part is at the end, activation status success. So the deployment should have been successful. Just see that on the next page. Great. So, to sum up, sum up, I just gave you a short introduction what platform as a service means, especially in the Node context. Showed you the very comprehensive market of Node.js offerings on the market, and some short demo for you to get started easily. Yeah. I'm finished on time, I think, so there's much room for questions. You're welcome.
Are there some questions? Because if there aren't...
You can also...
He has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering wondering, so most of them, they have some memory limit.
Yeah.
But do they also allow you to specify, like, to the node runtime, this limit the heap, or it's just like that goes over?
You can specify how you configure your node version, which is running on the instance, and if you configure it accordingly, that it doesn't use a heap exceeding this limit, it should be fine. So I think that should be possible.
I want to do it from within the app, that you can do it, can you configure it?
With OpenShift, you definitely can, because you can connect to the instance itself, so you can do what you want on there. But that's quite hacky, I think. It's also not in the interest of the provider to help you to stay within their free limits, but their interest is to get you to a paid plan. So I think that's the reason why they don't offer an easy switch to do it, for example.
But some of those are ready-made packages.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So you exclude AWS right from the beginning and didn't mention Compute Engine at all. Why?
Compute Engine. I created this talk about 6 months ago, so that's where the data is from, where I took the market overview. And I think at that time there wasn't such easy-to-use option with Google's offering for Node.js.
And Amazon?
Sorry?
Why did you exclude Amazon? You had that on
Amazon. I had Amazon on the page at the beginning. Elastic Beanstalk would be the product from Amazon, but they don't offer a permanently free plan, but only for the first year after you've signed up.
Cool.
Okay, thanks.
So you're still around,